course.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Hey, y'all. Guess what we get to do tonight? John Duffin here, Duffin Media, Zach Carlin, live and in person from the Summit Chasers Network. And we are live with you this evening. Good evening, buddy.
Good evening, my fine sir. How you doing today?
See, awesome. Folks, through the magic of television, you realize that we may or may not have actually been speaking a few minutes before this. So sometimes I get frozen into acting like we've never seen each other before.
Yeah.
But Zach, it is always a pleasure to have you back. And I'm glad you showed up for all of us. And folks, if you're watching us live, fantastic. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, beautiful. Wait a minute. We already got somebody showing up for us. There you go. Zach, you want to take this one?
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
She's really cool.
We'll keep her around, and we like it when she's here. So
Audrina's the best. So if you are checking us out on LinkedIn, that is great. Drop a note. Let us know that you're here so we can acknowledge you, shout you out. If you are watching us on Facebook Live, that works great too. And same deal. Drop a note in the comments. Let us know that you're around because we love the interactive part. And maybe you're watching us on YouTube and that works absolutely great. If you are with your friends, with your family, around the big screen or around your phone or somewhere in the middle, we're thrilled that you are here. So here's what we were looking to do. We get this chance every week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. We get this opportunity to be able to have some fun. I get to spend some time with my buddy Zach, who is a business wizard, and we get to have a little fun doing it. And so it's a little less formal of your standard webinars, as you can already tell. It's a little less formal. It's a little less severe. But what we're looking to do is maybe, if nothing else, smarten you up a little bit for work tomorrow without making sound a little harsh.
Sorry, go ahead. So
I love making my co-host laugh. I just do. Even if it's with or at, I don't care. I just love when he laughs. So there you have it, right? And that one was on the house. So what we get to do is look, takeaways, ahas. We take real life case studies, business situations, break them up a little bit, bring it to a reasonable length of time, problem, solution, example, takeaway, and then hopefully you'll be able to relate to it. If you are with us live tonight, not only follow along, jump in. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you for it? Are you against it? All good. We want to hear your comments. We feed off of your feedback. Weird, but I was going to say thank you. Not too shabby for an improv, but also too, this is how collectively we get to solve things. There's so many things I don't know, and I rely on the kindness of my co-host, the kindness of the people that chime in, and we all get to learn. And so whether, as I go back to smartening you up for work tomorrow, or tightening up your game, that's what we get to do. And we get to do it with real life case studies. This one's interesting tonight, and I'm going to let my partner in crime take this one because we don't want to compromise the identity of the person there. So, Zach Carlin.
They did want to remain anonymous, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody, whether you're watching the recording afterwards or you're here live. We really appreciate you. And obviously, yes, jump in. Whether you agree or disagree with what we're saying, jump in. We love the discussion. Everybody learns better when we're challenging each other. So this case study, this is a timely one, and it's a very robust topic to discuss, and we could go in many different angles. Again, we're going to try to keep it a little bit shorter today, but let's jump in. I'm going to try to get in character here for a second. Anonymous's
hang on.
I'm trying to get into Anonymous's shoes here. All right, so I'm in a leadership position in a media company. There are layers and tiers in our system. I lead a team of salespeople and report to senior leadership. So it sounds like this person is director or VP kind of level, or maybe mid-management. It's late summer, bunch of vacations amongst my team. I am also due to break next week. Good luck with that. I am feeling uncomfortable as our sales projections are currently pacing below expectations. Senior leadership is leaning into me to convey a sense of urgency to my salespeople. You email them and let them know the concern. While it's clear that increased revenue delivery is necessary, I don't want to diminish their spirit. Disrupting company culture by pressing them, especially while some are on break. Not every salesperson I have is a star. Hate it when that happens. But several are strong, and finding new talent has been difficult. Of course it is in this market. How do I best handle?
So thank you, Mr. Ruffin. I'm sorry, Anonymous from Philadelphia, PA, for the folks. I can't say that we've had a million people challenging this perspective or whatever, but I will say this. For me personally, this is an odd time of year. And I go through all sorts of mixed emotions. And so from a personal perspective, from a professional perspective, there is these end of season things, not to get all weepy and weird, but the fact of the matter is that it's like as I get to the traditional end of summer and where I would want to, or I'm in my mind vacation mode. If I'm one of those people like me personally, I typically took one of my vacations late in the summertime, something to look forward to. But what tends to happen is people can get squirrely. Very professional term that use there. But I say people can get weird because new seasons, new time, new quarters, new business cycles, new fiscal years, whatever. Senior leadership expects action, momentum, and immediate gratification. If you are hitting your numbers, are you hitting all the KPIs? If you're not hitting your numbers, why aren't you hitting your numbers? And what are we going to do about it? And it can get odd when your mindset is, I am mentally checked out. Some of my team is mentally checked out. Flying around long, terse emails back and forth can be lethal. But this time of the year when people have too much time on their hands and you don't have a full staff, that can get ugly. So what can happen with these sorts of situations is, what do you do with it? What the hell do you do with it? And for me, I will give an exact example. I can think of several. I'll give you the longer version of this story another time. But here is the Cliff Notes title. Have you ever had your entire sales staff leave right before Labor Day and have a sales team of 0? I have. Worst vacation ever. And then I'd explain that to my general manager, God rest her soul. I hope that's not what took her life. But I was going to say that it was a terrible situation, or just being in a frenetic state when I was far away and getting a million emails back and forth with, what are we going to do about this? And what are we going to do about this? And 500 people are being CC'd. This sounds so gross and like a privilege problem when I'm saying it. I was out of the country. It just sounds gross. So I get that, but it's not like nobody knew where I was or why I was there. And to get 500 emails in a 5-minute window, it was just rough when you can't do anything with it. So what are my top 3 in terms of solves? Have you ever been in a situation where you have this uncomfortable feeling? And here's the key, folks, with all of this, for at least from my perspective. Always remember, you are managing up, you're managing down, you're managing sideways. This is if you've got teams of hundreds, if you've got a couple of people, if you've got a couple of freelancers, or anywhere in the middle. Nobody works in a vacuum. Nobody works by themselves. You've always got somebody up that you've got to. Your senior leadership, if that's the case, if you are senior leadership, your stakeholders, your shareholders, if you are one of the revenue generating salespeople, it's your mid managers. Everybody is looking up. Everybody. So those people matter. Managing down sounds condescending. It's not that, but it's like your direct reports, the people that you are responsible for. Those individuals. That's when I say managing down. I don't mean that as a slam. I simply mean they're counting on you. So the very first thing that I suggest is never pick a side, ever. I'm just going to manage up on this one. I'm just going to worry about my salespeople. Never pick a side. What do I mean? You're not in the position, upper management typically is the one that is paying you. Your sales team are typically the ones, if it's your sales team, the salespeople are typically the ones that are generating the revenue. So you badly need them. So you've got to be able to walk a tightrope to make certain that everyone is accommodated and everyone is walking in the same direction. Remember, point 2, your primary job is that you are a problem solver. Always. No, I'm on vacation. I'll deal with that when I get back. And good luck with that. As I said again, real good luck. Nobody's in a position to just let things go. So your job is a problem solver. Know that. Always know that. There's always multiple problems in a singular situation. So you're responsible for solving or helping to solve all of them. And as I said, be picking a side. It's a dangerous game. You need all of the teams. For me, point 3, the best approach has always been for me personally, massive action. Massive action, which is like, for instance, so here would be the strategy. You're feeling a little weird this time of year. Sun's starting to set a couple minutes earlier and you're starting to feel melancholy and everything's just weird. Take those opportunities, a day, an evening, plan. What exactly am I going to do next week to right this situation? What can I do tomorrow morning to make this work? What exactly are my action steps? I'm going to give you the example. When I told you, I had 0 salespeople the day before I was going on vacation. Bye. See you soon. And I left. So the person that hired me that was, you know what I mean, that's paying me is like, well, what? So what I did, the only thing I could do, which is I scheduled, I still remember the number. It was 16 interviews for the Tuesday after Labor Day. One on the half hour from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And there was not a break at all. There was an interview scheduled 8 a.m., 8:30, 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, 11, 11:30. And I'm not telling you that to impress you. I was like half panic stricken, but I'm like, I got to do something here. So massive action. I'm like, I'm just going to interview everybody and hope that I can come up with at least a couple of pieces. How I knew I made the right decision. The person that had every right to be panic stricken, the owner of the station, she would keep walking by my office, and I had a little glass around my office, right? So she would keep walking by my office, and there was always a person sitting in there, and there was always a different person. You know what I mean? There was always a different person. So she knew what was going on. And I remember several times she would just like nod her head. Like, And that made me feel great. And it was like, not because I'm all that, but it knew I did something. I took a plate off of the person that needed it done. And we wound up refilling our sales team as a result. So that was just one example that I can say. Really a strong move would be, don't let your sales team deplete to 0. I learned, but that was, but again, it's solve as many problems, not just your immediate problem. Understand the team above you, below you, alongside of you. They all matter. You need all of them to do your job. Solve a problem in a way that helps as many of your teams as possible. Number 3, take massive action. I love this, by the way. With Audrina saying, reprioritization and coverage structure would be key here to get through the vacation seasons. Yes. Yes. I like your idea way better than let's let them all quit. So, and folks, that is one example of 20 that I could give you as to why this time of year I feel like is fraught with potential problems, and some of them are busy work problems. But just ignoring them, I'll just check out, and Labor Day Tuesday I'll be fresh and ready to go. You can't because the pressure just keeps accelerating. So plan a little bit, act a lot, and work with each of the teams around you, and hopefully that puts you in a better situation. Zach, for this anonymous person, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that this individual's, mid management. So they're acting upon their goals are determined for them from probably some obscure forecasting that those above them probably made up, or based on their other years' growth, and doesn't take a lot of other things into consideration, like economy, markets, buying intent, a bunch of different factors, right? There's a lot of different things. So this is a big reason. This is one of the reasons why a lot of these traditional forecasting, like this classical strategy of forecasting, it doesn't work as consistently as it used to in industries where it typically has always been used. Forecast, this is what we should be this year, so we can see to get this much more funding for these other projects or innovations and this kind of stuff, and then it doesn't happen, and then it looks like everybody fails, and then they fire everybody because they set goals that were based on hoopla, right? So goals are not strategies. But in this case, I'm assuming this person has no control over those things. This is just an odd time of year where individuals are a little bit more disengaged. They're more worried about the kids are out of school. They got vacations going on. That all-inclusive Mexico trip, it takes a lot out of you. But for this, I mean, obviously, a structured, a coverage structure would help in this case, right? It would be a short-term fix. Yeah. So reprioritization, that's a hard one to say. And coverage structure would be key to getting through the vacation seasons, of course. Absolutely. But vacation seasons happen every year.
Yeah.
You should be able to plan for these accordingly. Now, typically, if you're in a sales role, depends what type of sales role this is. I'm assuming if it's a media coverage or a media company, it is probably longer cycle times. The pipeline is your nervous system, your heart, what keeps you alive is your pipeline. And so finding ways where your team can work together to keep the pipeline full, to keep things moving whilst people are on vacation, so that they can keep those numbers at least more consistent than they can. But in that case, it's still very difficult. It's still very difficult to do when you have people going on vacations all over the place and this kind of thing. But for your team, it's when they come back and you're sending that email and you're trying to rally the troops, so to speak, reprioritize and refocus on, and maybe even redefine what your most important leading indicators are. Right? Don't have them come back and focus on a whole bunch of lag measures that they can't do anything about because they've been gone for 2 weeks. Right? You didn't hit your numbers this month, right? So blah, 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 blah. You're going to fail. Don't focus on that. Focus on what are the things you can do right now to get more pipeline. What are the things you can do right now to close what is in your pipeline? What are the things you can do right now that'll lead to a higher likelihood of success in the future? Leading indicators you have control of. You can do something now about them. You can improve them in an hour or in a day, right? So if you're that leader, right, go on vacation, chill out, but get your team, when you come back, get your team refocused on the leading indicators. Don't have them focus on, hey, we're behind and all this kind of stuff. Your job is really in that middle management role is at some times to protect them from senior leadership, from senior management, because all they're looking at is the books. They're looking at, I mean, it depends on the size of your company or if it's public or not. They're looking at they're looking at all these types of things. They're looking at, what do clients think about you, publications and that kind of stuff. That's not what your team needs to worry about. Your team needs to worry about those leading indicators, those day-to-day activities that drive growth. So get them together, communicate to the team where you're at. We're behind, right? But we can't do anything about that now. What we are going to do is we're going to focus on these leading indicators and then set clearly defined goals for your team based on the leading indicators. Don't worry about the leg measures. Don't worry about stuff that's already happened. If it's, you're already going to miss projections for third quarter at this point. So why worry about them? Why worry about them right now? Okay. Leave that to you into the upper management. All right. But for them, it's your job as a leader to protect them from that bullshit so that they can focus on what's right in front of them, which is cleaning their lists, which is finding finding the champions, depending on what type of sales you're doing. It depends what your sales process looks like. It's making a certain amount of calls, challenging your team to make a certain amount of calls. But if you have them focus on things they can't control, they have no control over. Currently, they have no control over. You're just going to deflate. They're just going to deflate, and then you're going to end up with no salespeople, or just a much more. You're not going to allow them to build momentum going into the fourth quarter, right? Which is generally when, let's be real, when most sales organizations make their last push and they make all their commission is in the last few months, because then they spend all this time building up their pipeline, and then all they want to do is close it so they can get those fat bonus checks for Christmas, and they can whatever, spoil their kids and their family and their wives and husbands.
Plan their next vacation. And
plan their next vacation. Exactly. So have them just be hyper focused on what those leading indicators are, right? And if you don't know what those are, clearly define them, right? If I make 100 calls, if you make 100 calls a day to a clean list, this is the likelihood of you adding this many people onto your calendar. You add this many people onto your calendar based on previous conversion rates. You can do this, but you can control this right now. You can make 200 calls today and you're back on track, right? So give them wins right away using leading indicators, clearly defined leading indicators. And then once you get those wins, you can start getting that momentum back. The point is, the key is clearly define the leading indicators, get them some wins really early on, start building that momentum, right? So that you can at least push into that fourth quarter with momentum and positivity and all this kind of good stuff, right? But don't come back and start, dropping it on their head that like, oh, everyone's pissed off at me because you guys are taking vacation and we're going to miss all of our quotas. You guys suck. Why are you taking all these vacations to start? Your job as a leader is to protect them from that shit, have them focus on what they can control, and get them some wins to gain momentum.
See, I think that's beautiful. I think so often what can happen when you've got too much time on your hands or not enough people to talk to or whatever is you start manufacturing nonsense. And one of the things that can happen is you start finding easy finger pointing methods. Like you were talking about, it's like, well, like, how can I? Look, nobody's around, everybody's on vacation or, stealing from the movie Glengarry Glen Ross. These leads are terrible. It's like you just can't sit and move forward. And I think one of the things that you just identified, which I think is a really big point, which is not lean into people for the nonsense. We're not going to make our third quarter goals. Well, okay, so we all know that. You can read the numbers. You know what I'm saying? So, okay. And that's a problem. And what are we going to do? And I can't go back to it. That's a terrible way to go about it. And again, it's rather than you're a problem or it's their fault or I don't like this or what, to come at it from a proactive sense that allows you to see the situation. You don't have to sit and, play escapism. But the fact of the matter is, ruminating over getting close enough in September, I think is a really brief conversation because mostly it's being, so what can we do at this? And this is where, as a leader, rather than just asking questions, suggestions are never a bad thing. This is where I believe as a leader, you could really help. So rather than asking nothing but leading questions that sound almost accusatory, and people will do that too in the finger point. So what did you call so-and-so? Did you remember to call this? And nothing feels worse than some sort of a Captain Obvious. I know it. I know I didn't hit the number. So I've been on both sides of that. I've been in at times where my numbers have been great, and there was times in the 25 years where I didn't hit every number of every time. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant, but I was lucky because most of the time I wasn't on the wrong end of those conversations, but I was on the wrong end of them a couple of times. But you know what I did? And I learned I was really good. And I say that really sarcastically. I was really good at managing upward in the beginning of my managerial career. Really good. And that has a lot of other code names too, by the way. And really bad at managing downward. So I was walking around paranoid. So it's like, oh, well, Fruity didn't hit her number. So you learn, if you're me, that's an awful strategy. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel awful as a human being. And it doesn't solve any problem whatsoever. So thankfully, I learned fast that is never going to help anybody else. So all of that is to say, this reminder, every team that's around you, the team that's counting on you, the team that is counting on you and looking downward, your colleagues in the other departments, you got to be able to work with all of them. So finding ways to be like, look, while you were away, I took a look at some of the categories. Here are some categories that are making some sense for me right now. I took a look at some of the historicals from last year, and I noticed that blah, blah, blah. You could actually, if you're a leader, at least attempt to help somebody rather than point fingers at your team. Doesn't mean they have to take your suggestions. It simply means it's like, okay, this one's not just pointing fingers. So when I talked about the massive action, it's really important that it doesn't necessarily need to be sloppy or scattered action. It should be strategic action, but it doesn't have to be just firing buckshot. It just doesn't have to be. Have some proactive thought. Take the time that you have now. Plan a little bit. What exactly can we do if your numbers aren't where they should be? If they are based, like Zach, as you said, some made up prognosis from before, and you're answering to that made up prognosis, whatever the case may be, take a little time now to be like, okay, next week, in 2 weeks, here's exactly who we're going to call. Here's how we're going to do it. When I look to galvanize my team, I don't need to sound like a hard nose, but I can literally say, hey, here's the direction I want us to head. Here's the reason I want us to head here. Here's a couple of examples of things that we can do. And act as if you're in the game. Take the massive action with the team. And I will give you one more example. I remember this. This was a case, folks, the massive action part. I know, God, that sounds so Philadelphia, massive action. But I'll never forget. It was like we were low on some numbers one year, and we had regional bosses. They would come in from other cities. And I remember it's Labor Day week. Like, oh, well, I'll be in town. It was like the Wednesday after Labor Day, not the Tuesday. And in your mind, you're like, oh my God, people are just getting back from vacation. Nobody's going to be around. They want appointments. Like the regional managers wanted you to take them places. But I remember thinking, okay, that's what it'll do. And I remember lining up a insane number of appointments for them. Did it solve every problem? No. But again, people don't want to see a finger point, hide, or act as if the problems or situations aren't real. And that's why I was just going to say, incorporate all of your teams. Drive the culture that we're all going to solve this together. And then again, massive action. Buddy, on the half-hour mark, what else do you think that we could add at this point?
Oh, man. I mean, well, there's one thing that we talked about a few weeks ago when solving these types of problems is you always want to solve these types of problems twice, right? You come back, you're not hitting your numbers. Okay. And do what you need to do right now to get back on track, right? Focus on the leading indicators, take action, right? Make sure you protect your team and allow them to focus on the most important high value tasks right now and get them some wins early on. But then once you're back on track, okay, why are we here? We don't want to do this every time somebody goes on vacation. We got Christmas coming up. What happens during Christmas? You got spring break. What happens during spring break? Whatever it is, right? You're redecorating the office, so now people get a few extra days off. There's a lot, like this could happen. There's many different variations of something like this that could happen, right? But why is it happening? Why is it happening to begin with? And if you're and again, in this example, you're probably closer to mid management type of things. So you can't necessarily, you can't make policy changes like you could if you're a founder or something like that. However, you get these forecasts, you get the goals that are put upon you and your team, and you work backwards from them, and you try to create, like, I guess, kind of like a little mini like org chart, right? In order for us to hit these numbers, these are the conversions that we need. And then you can say, okay, this is the highest conversion that my sales team has had. This is the highest activity and conversion rate that my team has ever had. And if everybody hit these highest activity and conversion rates, this is what we would hit. And you'll see most of the time, if you do that, your team, the forecasts are off, right? It's you're way off. So you're like, okay, that means I need to hire and train this many people in this amount of time. Our average, ramp up time to hitting minimum metrics is this. So that means I need to hire 4 people, train them in 4 days, and have them hitting minimum metrics by yesterday in order to hit these forecasts. And you have a plan. It's not a good plan. We have a plan that you can then take to your superiors and be like, okay, here's my business plan. Here's how I think that we can accomplish this goal. What do you think? And a lot of times you'll see them look like, well, we can't hire that many people, right? Or we don't have the infrastructure to bring in that many high quality sales reps. Or hey, the market looks it's not great right now. We're losing out. We're already losing out good salespeople to competitors. Why do you think we can get these people in right now? You start to challenge them, but you're challenging them based off of a plan. You're challenging them based off of an introspective, thought out, entrepreneurial minded plan. And you can start making changes that way. And you can start being the catalyst to make those types of changes. And it's good for your own career, right? I'm assuming that you probably won't be at this place forever. And if you are, I mean, that's fine too. But if you got to take some control of your own team's destiny and treat your team as if it's your own little business. That would be my biggest piece of advice. Treat your team like it's your own little business. You get these forecasts, come up with a plan. What does my team need to look like? What are the conversion rates? What type of enablement do we need? What type of again, if you're, depending on what type of business you are, if you're just like kind of like a closer team, okay, here's the leads that we would need, here's the MQLs that we would need, the number of MQLs we would need.
Yep, average cost per sale, and right. So
yeah, and come up with that plan. What does it need to look like? Come up with that business plan to ideally or hopefully accomplish the goal that was put upon you from senior leadership. And again, you'll either be a catalyst to make some changes in how you're forecasting and setting different types of expectations, or they'll help you get the resources that you need because you have a well thought out plan. So they'll get you the enablement, they'll get you the hiring budget, they'll get you a hiring manager, whatever it is. Or they'll be like, oh, we didn't think this through, which is most of the time. They might not admit it, but that's most of the time, especially if they're using these traditional forecasting methods of placing expectations on certain sales teams. Then they'll be like, oh, this isn't working. We need to figure out another way to do this. Let's adjust your expectations. Let's adjust your goals, right? That doesn't mean you take your foot off the gas when they do that, by the way. You do the same thing. Okay, I have a new goal. What's my game plan? What does it need to look like? What does the org chart need to look like? What does my team need to look like? What are the conversion rates and activities that they need to be doing? What are the leading indicators? And then work backwards from there. But again, solve the problem now. Give them some wins, right? Focus on what they can control. You protect them from the bureaucratic bullshit from up there.
Yeah.
And then come back. Okay, what is the plan? What does my organization, what does your team need to look like to accomplish the goal? Make a plan and present it to your team. And if you don't have that kind of relationship with your bosses, that's a good sign. You should probably freshen up the resume.
I'll add one more thing. Freshen up the resume, but what you could do before then is find the right time to have a conversation. So, life lesson. In the midst of a hailstorm or any other kind of storm that you want to throw out there, right? In the midst of that is a bad time to be having strategic conversations. So pick your spots. So, for instance, when things are a little bit slower, like say, for instance, right now, if your senior leader happens to be around, these are good times to have conversations because they're not, maybe they don't have quite as many fires to put out as they normally do. Do not barge into an office. I think it's common sense, but don't barge into somebody's office when they're in the midst of 50 things and phones are blowing up, and then you're going to need to have some heavy conversation. But you know when the right time is. Early in the morning, late in the day, early evening, when it's a little bit less frenetic. Have the conversations that demonstrate that you can be a catalyst and help them. Because there's nothing more refreshing than when somebody is offering help. And folks, if you're the leader and people are counting on you, say, for instance, I come from a career in sales, so I keep leaning on that same direction. But any department, it works, which is salespeople, any person so appreciates when somebody is going to bat for them, because it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen all the time. So you don't have to win every fight. You don't. But you just have to demonstrate that you're going to fight every fight and not roll over. And so have the fights, have the strategic conversations, lay down the game plans when you're in a position, when the message can actually be received. You know, and so if there's downtime, that's the time to have the conversations. That's the time to plan. That's the time to drive culture. So when it is full steam ahead, you don't have to think so much. The message is already, in essence, you're just reconveying a message that's already been done. And as I said, allow every team matters, and make sure that you're fighting with and for all of them. And who knows? Then maybe post Labor Day, you wind up having a great September. maybe you wind up hitting all in. It happens a lot. These situations turn around a lot. And typically it doesn't take a ton to get them going. And that's why I'm saying this is not a doom and gloom thing at all. But take advantage of the time and don't make an unnecessary, foolish, busy work. You know, there's no need. There's no need. And for God's sake, mass emails when people are on vacation, really try not to do that. Really try not to. CC everyone who's ever been born and a bunch of terse back and forth. Jesus God, try
and make sure that everybody you CC is in order of, seniority.
Yeah.
Make sure.
If you can, senior leader first, defer to all, make sure they can be seen. It's like, oh my God, give somebody a couple of days of peace. And I swear to God, I feel like you'll be greatly rewarded come Labor Day Tuesday. Buddy boy, anything else you think we should cover at this point?
I think we covered her well.
Boom. I love it. I love it. Folks, I got not even a call. Probably a
Did you get a fax? Was that a fax machine? Dude, sounded like a fax machine.
Right now, my printer has not been working properly, and I don't want to tell you how long it's been. So fax-wise, no. It's at this point, no. I'm trying to go paperless, but if you saw some parts of my home, you'd be like, oh, no, you're not. No, you're not. Zach Carlin, Summit Chasers Network. It is absolutely a pleasure, my friend. I'm really grateful that we get to do this. Thanks for showing up for me.
Thank you.
100%. Hey, folks, thank you for showing up for us. John Duffin here with Duffin Media. We get back again Tuesday. Try not to quit between now and Tuesday. All right. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I love that face. We love having you here. Watch the replay. Send it to a friend. Maybe we smarten them up too. But in the meantime, thanks so much for showing up. Have a wonderful night, folks. Be well, and we will see you soon. Bye.